Okay, so now we are on the step for making the outer bag. And we are cutting or measuring and cutting out a notch in the middle row. And this is eventually going to be a boxed bottom, like what we did on your zipper bag. But we're not going to sew it up just yet. We're just going to measure and cut it out for now. So it says we're going to place the outer bag. It says right side up on a work surface. We are going to do right side down because if you make a mistake, you don't want this pencil mark to be on the outer part of your bag. So we're going to write on the muslin part here. And then it says center and cut a notch from each side of row 3. That's 6.5 inches long and 3 3/4 deep. So it kind of shows you a picture here exactly what we're doing. So to get that 6.5 long, I'm going to measure to center this. And my middle row is about 7 inches and I want it 6.5 inches long. So if I'm centering this, I'm going to come in 1/4 inch on each side. And that's going to give me that 6.5. So I can line that up and measure. I'm 6.5, about right there. And then if I want to go 3 3/4 inches up, I'm just going to measure straight up from there. It helps to use a cutting mat to lay out this way to see your lines and measurements, and then also a ruler. So I'm just going to measure up 3 3/4 and make a dot and just kind of connect those. And the same thing here, 3 3/4 down this way. And then I'll make that line. And then I'm going to connect these across the top, a nice straight line. And just for you to see a little bit closer here, if I am looking for 3 3/4, so here's my 3, here's my 3.5, and here's 3 3/4. So right there, it's like 2 lines right before the 4. And then for 6.5, we see 6 is here, 7's here, so the half mark is right there. So 6.5 long and then 3 3/4 deep. And then from here, we're just going to cut this out and then I'll help you with measuring the next part. All right, so I cut out the bottom or that middle row and then I folded it up because my directions say now, I'm coming up here, but first I've got to read this bottom step. It says, with right sides together, stitch the side seams using a 1/2 inch seam and then leave a 3/4 inch opening along each side seam, starting 1 3/8 from the upper raw edge. And there's a picture exactly what we're going to be doing. We're going to sew, we're going to leave this open from each of those dots, and then we're going to sew all the way down here. So to get these measurements, we're going to line everything up here, and this is why we mark on the wrong side of our fabric. I measured wrong, and so I didn't have to worry about that. It's going to be on the inside of my bag. Not a big deal. If that were on the front of my bag, I would be really annoyed right now. Okay, so I am looking at the directions here, and so I'm going to measure 1 3/8 inch from the top. So here's 1 inch. Whoop, you can't see that. Here's 1 inch. And then if I were going to go 3/8 inch, I'm going to count 1/8, 2/8, 3/8, and it's that little line right before 1.5. So from the top, we're going to measure 1 3/8 inch, and I'm going to make a mark there. Oh, you can't see that. There we go. So I measured down 1 3/8 and made a mark. And you can make it further across because we're going to do a 1/2 inch seam here. And then from that mark, it wants us to leave 3/4 of an inch open. So here's 1/4, here's 1/2, here's 3/4. So I'm going to make another mark there. So now I'm going to pin this whole side. I'm going to do the same measurements over here, pin, and then we're going to sew it up. We're going to start here with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. So that's the second line on your presser foot or your throat plate. Back stitch, sew to here, back stitch, leave this open, and then do the same thing. Back stitch, sew all the way down here and back stitch. And then do the opposite side as well.